Game of Thrones' Wildlings, or the Free Folk as they call themselves, have a lot of different tribes making up their large group or ethnic group that are all, coalescing together under the leadership of Mance Rayder to invade the South so that they could avoid dying, because of some ice zombies. And it's the fact that they are made up of a bunch of different tribes that are culturally unique from one another that make them such an interesting group, because despite the fact that the Wildlings, the Free Folk, are really just one ethnic group, they are like the OG descendants of the first men that never mixed with the Andals. They are very culturally specific from group to group depending on where they ended up north of the wall. Yada yada this thing for the reasons yeah, just remember, hey, please, yeah, okay. One of the first really interesting groups are the Thenns. The Thenns, though, are a little different in the books than they are in the TV show. Remember, in the TV show, they looked like this. It was a choice. So unlike the TV show, the Thenns are really just like the most technologically advanced of the Wildlings. The show makes them a composite of several other tribes, primarily like the cannibal ones, and gives them that whole aesthetic, but that's not really their deal. The Thenns are, like I said, the most technologically advanced of the Wildling Free Folk groups. And we see that because they are the only group that has metal armor and metal tools and spears and stuff that they fight with, metal helms, except the metal is all bronze. Because if you'll remember from when I've spoken about the early First Men in the past, the First Men, their forging metal of choice was bronze, which is what eventually was one of the contributing factors when the Andals came to them, basically decimating them with superior technology, weapons, etc. If you want to argue in the comments about the merits of bronze versus iron or whatever, cool, this is a fantasy world. If it's wrong, and we'll all move past it, okay? But the Thenns are also, beyond being the most technologically advanced of the Free Folk, the group that kind of emulates the southern people as well. And by southern people, I mean the Seven Kingdoms. So the Seven Kingdoms are looked down upon by the Free Folk in general because, they call themselves the Free Folk. And they call those south of the wall kneelers because they kneel to all of these, lords and kings that they have no choice but to be under. Though in the Free Folk's mind, they just choose to kneel. Because remember that the Free Folk in general, they really choose their leaders. If they don't like someone, they don't deal with them for very long. They'll move on. And so all of the different ethnic groups have different systems of people who are in charge. I know that is not a very eloquent way of putting it, but basically there isn't one system ruling everything. It isn't the fiefdom and the peasant system that you see down in Westeros, southern Westeros. Serfs, that's the word. But getting back to the Thenns are the ones that the most closely seem to mirror the kneelers down south, because the Thenns are led by someone who's called the Magnar of Thenn, which is basically their leader, who is kind of considered to be almost godlike. The position of Magnar is also a hereditary one, so when the old one dies, their son or child, I don't know if women can inherit, but the next Magnar is normally their offspring. So in the books, the Magnar that we first meet is called Styr. Styr is killed during the Battle of Castle Black, and then he is succeeded by his son Sigorn. Now, the reason it's significant that I'm mentioning that they're a little bit more hierarchical, if you will, is because they're also kind of the most organized. And that isn't to say that these hierarchical systems are, necessarily a positive thing, but I guess when you are trying to organize a fighting force, there is a reason, the military functions as it does. So the combination of these two things, the hierarchical system and their superior weapons, because they are the only group of Free Folk who still, forge bronze, makes them pretty dangerous, amongst that group. Of course, the Thenns are not alone. There are lots of other clans. One of them are called the Hornfoots. They are distinct because they do not wear any form of shoes, and so the bottom of their feet become black, and they are, somehow able to survive that way. I don't know if there is a real world equivalent to this. I'm sure you will, educate me in the comments if there is. But yeah, this sounds pretty wild to me because I'm sorry, is your foot dead? Or is your foot dead because you're walking through snow barefoot for your entire life? I'm confused. Then, of course, there are the Men of the Frozen Shore. They are known for just being kind of weird. So there are walrus men, and there are some kind of weird, like, antlered men. I call them that because they literally wear them. So, and they also have strange names. One of them, one of the few characters that does get named, is known as the Great Walrus. That is his name. He's the Great Walrus, and he wears giant walrus tusks. Then there's, other men of the Frozen Shore who wear these, like, giant antler things on their head. They they use a sled that is made out of, I think it's whale bones. Sorry, not whale bones, walrus bones. How dumb of me. So yeah, they build these sleds out of walrus bones, and then they have dogs pull it. I think they also sometimes ride bears. It's very confusing. They're an odd people, but that's, seemingly the point. Next, there are the Ice River clans. They are the ones that are the cannibals. So they're the ones that, in the show get mixed with the Thenns and stuff, but they're said to, do the cannibal thing. That's when they beat someone, well, you don't get beat just once, you get beat twice, because you're about to be nommed by this freak. I should also add that the cannibals actually do have a name. They are called the Ice River clans because, you guessed it, they live by the ice rivers, and they're in constant conflict with the Frozen Shore folk. The guys with the walruses, if the walrus people win, then yippee, our walruses win, and then, if they lose, they get nommed. And then finally, there are the cave dwellers, who are, known for living in caves. They are another one that I think was kind of mixed with the Thenns in the show. They are known for sharpening their teeth into points, because I don't know what else to tell you. It should also be noted, as you can kind of see in this illustration here, that the cave dwellers are also known for painting or dyeing their faces blue, green, or purple as part of their just weird aesthetic. Also, unlike a lot of the free folk who commonly worship the old gods, the cave dwellers were not entirely too sure about. It is sometimes said that they worship strange ice gods that, like, live underground. Actually, scratch that. I was combining two in my head. They worship some weird underground gods, while the walrus people, they worship some weird, like, ice and snow gods. I don't have a picture for the next section, so I'm just going to go back to the Thenns, but pretend it's something else. So something else that I want to talk about, though, is not all of the Wildlings free folk live in these, clans, tribes, etc. Sometimes they live in much smaller groups, sometimes just, like, living in a hall, like, with whoever they live with. A couple examples of that are Ruddy Hall, which is where Tormund lives. Tormund has this hall. He calls himself the Mead King of Ruddy Hall. Whether that is a title that he's given himself or other people, also use, is a little unclear, at least in my memory. If it's clear to someone else, please let me know in the comments, yell all about it. And then, of course, there's the big one who I don't like talking about very much, with Craster, who also does a similar thing with him and his little, harem of poor abused people. That's kind of a bummer to end on, so I will just say that in general, the Wildlings are a very interesting and diverse group. They, for the most part, speak the old tongue. Very, very few of them actually speak the common tongue. And to remember, like, the difference, the old tongue is the language basically originally spoken by the first men when they came to Westeros. That was supplanted by the common tongue, which was the language spoken by the Andals when they came over in, like, the second human invasion wave, whatever you want to call it. And it kind of varies from group to group. Some of them, do speak the common tongue a bit, but in general, most of them speak the old tongue. The Thenn specifically, like, barely, usually don't know any of the common tongue. Usually it's just straight old tongue, and you gotta deal with that. Which also makes sense because the Thenns are the ones who also deal with the giants the most, and the giants, at least the ones that, have lived into the modern day, seem to universally speak the old tongue. So at the end of the TV show, do you think Jon goes and lives with the cannibal people or the walrus people? Let me know down in the comments. KK Night.